Today we are focusing our attention to the people who lived in Guatemala all the way to Peru. In Guatemala, one of the most intriguing Day of the Dead celebrations takes place in the town of Zumpango. The ancient rite can be traced to indigenous cultures that considered it disrespectful to mourn the dead, who were kept alive in memory and spirit. In 1903, Americans Orville and Wilbur Wright completed the world's first successful controlled-powered flight at Kill Devil Hills near Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Most people would be content that this was the first human flight. They would be mistaken, as they forget there are other methods that humans took to the sky. The first actual manned flight was on November 21, 1783. The passengers were Jean-François Pilote de Rogy and François Laurent. In this video we will examine a theory, a very controversial one, that may hold clues and answers to an important question. Join me, here at Anomalies and the Real Deal, and take a deep look into the probability and evidence that our earliest ancestors may have took to the sky long before the likes of Jean-François Pilote de Rogy and François Laurent and the Wright brothers ever took their first breath.
Blanchard was joined by co-pilot Dr. John Jeffries. Unsure what kind of gases awaited them in the upper atmosphere, they brought silk oars in case the air was thick enough for them to row across the sky. However, within a few hours the balloon was barely staying afloat, and descending so close to the water they were in danger of sinking. The oars were thrown overboard, and so was anything else that added extra weight, including Blanchard's pants.
What?
When that wasn't enough, Jeffries suggested they pee over the side to see if emptying their bladders might help. Then, Blanchard still died in a balloon a few years later.
Any YouTube history sleuth can tell you about OOParts. These are out-of-place artifacts that are found, not matching the accepted timeline, or too weird and complex to associate with a certain culture. My goal is that after viewing this video, if you are a doubter of what I am presenting as a possibility, maybe, just maybe you may learn something or even become a believer. In the 15th and 16th centuries, the genius inventor Leonardo da Vinci also had a lifelong fascination with conquering flight, but fortunately he did not injure himself with such practical experiments. He was reported to have said to common folk, "A bird is an instrument working according to mathematical law, which it is within the capacity of man to reproduce." I want to reiterate that this is a theory and not considered to be proven by archaeology or anthropology of our time. Let's take a look at a modern hot air balloon. It consists of a few main parts: the basket, the burner, and the balloon. As a modern burner heats up the inside of the balloon, causing a convection current. As heat rises to the top, cold air gets pushed out of the balloon at its opening. Some accounts of early Chinese flight have been documented to before the year 2000 BC. In more modern times, 1766, the Emperor Cheng Tang is said to have ordered the construction of a flying machine, which was subsequently destroyed before anyone could discover the secret of flight, especially their enemies. If that isn't convincing, in the 3rd century BC the Chinese poet Chu Yun was the first to have made a detailed aerial survey of the Gobi Desert, giving special praise and pride to the durability of his flying craft, as it soared over wind and sandstorms, mastering the unforgiving desert. There is a long-held legend of Mozi. He fashioned a bird made of wood and then rode it to sky. The classic Lu Wen Mozi told us that during the spring and autumn period, from year 770 to 476 BC, a people full of tradition who knew their land well, who traveled it frequently, and had the ability to focus on things other than the war, I just can't help but to think we aren't giving them the credit that they deserve. With mountainous terrain, cities spread all across the continent of South America, and the mental stamina to create complex philosophies, religion, traditions, and celebrations, yet we find ourselves thinking in modern society that just because we have not found a glider, balloon, or kite with a person attached to it, sorry I had to make a joke, we assume that it's impossible they could ever fly. Keep in mind that they had no written language to write about this stuff, only oral tradition passed down from elders to the youth. Even much later on, the Peruvian Incas still didn't have a written language by definition. Instead, the way these ancient people recorded information was through a complex system of different knots tied in ropes attached to a longer cord. We talked about balloons, now how about other methods of flight? Let's take a look at gliders. You may ask, how long can you stay in the air hang gliding? According to Wikipedia, most gliders can remain flying as long as there is lift available. Using thermals, this is about 8 hours. By using prevailing winds blowing up a slope, a glider can be flown for as long as the wind is blowing. How much wind does it take to hang a glide? Generally, ideal winds for launching and landing are from 5 to 20 miles per hour depending on the flying site, and 0 to around 10 miles per hour for beginner students learning to handle the glider on a training hill. The windiest month is October with an average wind speed of 5.2 miles per hour, that is 8.3 kilometers per hour, while the calmest month is June with an average wind speed of 4.9 miles per hour, which calculate to 7.9 kilometers per hour. This is an adequate wind speed for a glider or a kite.
Look at the cultures in this video. History implies that in 2 or 3,000 years, not one person attempted to copy the flight of a condor. Of the 170 million Andean and Inca, not one was a dreamer. A child today can easily build a glider with instruction. When I was 6, I made my own kites and flew them high. Nobody showed me how, it was just common sense. I find it hard to entertain the thought that the Nazca lines were intended for anything but to be viewed from above. Knowing how to make 30-foot kites, ones that have actually picked kids of the ground. The huge runway-like mystery lines in the Nazca plains would be completely adequate and actually perfect for a group of people, like on the video here, to hold the ropes and have room to run and get the kite airborne. There is nothing to try making it, though it may be scary to fly, considering kites often fall uncontrollably. I would like to believe that if in a couple hundred years we could accomplish human flight, that the Andean and Inca could have done the same in 3,000 years. That's my theory, how the Nazca region could fly over the glyphs. My leading theory is that after the rider of the kite was airborne, the guide ropes were released, making the kite a pseudo-glider that could stay airborne indefinitely with the mountain winds. I am a believer. How about you? Did I convince you? Tell me what you believe in the comment section.
I'd swear anything in the whole wide world to be a space traveler.
Inside we found 2 ceremonial bowls, one of which has a 3-dimensional depiction of the Andean condor. Because of the find, the new ceremonial complex has now been named the Gallery of the Condor. The first object is a sculpted stone bowl, around 10 inches tall and weighing around 40 pounds. It has the head of an Andean condor on one side, its tail on the other and wings in between.
Take a serious look and compare the foolish pioneers of flight in our age, looking like a clown with generic paper and bird feather wings.
A giant bird that could glide and soar infinitely, using the constant wind of the Andes mountains. They paid attention to it enough to emulate it, and extravagant pottery and colorful embroideries, celebrated with festivities, but yet modern history claims that they were too ignorant to even attempt to emulate the flight of their god. Please keep in mind now that they make beautiful costumes of feathers and have ceremonies, or they outstretch their wings and soar across the ground in dance, but never thought to go to the top of a mountain. Keep in mind the mountains are everywhere, and to attempt to fly. Also keep in mind that there are vast numbers of volcanoes. I'm talking dozens and dozens that not by chance are along the massive roadways stretching across the continent.
There is a common theme between ancient cultures we have discussed and the modern people of today. These daydreamers constantly tried to emulate the flight of birds throughout history. The Chinese made flying wooden birds and later paper lanterns and fireworks. Their wooden flying avian possibly was reminiscent of the now popular Sakara bird. So many people have attempted the accomplishment of Daedalus and attached bird wings to theorarms as they jump to theorarms, as they jump to their ultimate failure. Why do we not give credit to the advanced people of the past? It could be considered akin to racism and prejudice. Why can't academia take an honest look with an open mind and see that from Guatemala to Peru, from the Chavan to the Inca, and later the mighty Aztec people revered birds, especially the condor? It was considered to be a god in Theer times second only to the jaguar. They could sew locking stitches and make fabric as fine as silk to the thickest of wool. They mastered metallurgy, plumbing, rope and basket making. They had the resources and skill needed to fashion simple glider, kite, or balloon.
Stay safe, and everyone remember, if it is anomalous and curious, you can be sure we are talking about it. You can request video topics by emailing me at anomaliesandtherealdeal@gmail.com. You have the power to help me build this channel, and we can learn and explore topics that are actually pretty damn cool. You can help us by simply subscribing to this channel and liking this video. We are not and never will be a monetized channel here on YouTube. We do this 100% for our enjoyment and to get the word out on important sightings and mysterious anomalies.